I just told the guys I didn't really have a cold open for us today, and I'm going to ask Seth a genuine question because it's been a long time since this has come up. Do you speak any Japanese, Seth?
I do not. I mean, not like, I could say konnichiwa, but like nothing. No, nothing like that.
You have some percentage of Japanese, correct? Some ratio.
I'm a quarter Japanese. Yes,
a quarter Japanese. I was scrolling through my Twitter timeline to try to find something funny for us to talk about, and I'm just saying, there's a really well-paying gig in the Los Angeles area. If you could maybe brush up on your Japanese a little bit, where it seems like you may be able to have a pretty lucrative job and maybe get the world's best friend, or maybe be the world's best friend.
And hear me out, Seth. I think you're gonna be very high in the qualification ranks if you remind me. What's that? You don't gamble, right?
I do not. So I'm halfway there.
Rick, he doesn't gamble. I think we should get can we do a Zoom next? Yeah, when they fly back. Okay, yeah, we can get you a Zoom when we fly back to, America.
Seth, I think you may be one of the top 2 leading candidates. It looks like it is just going to be between you and your arch nemesis, Phil McCracken.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into Only Weird Games here on KC Sports Network. You may need some interpretation to understand the depths that this show occasionally plunges to. Joshua Brisco, Seth Keysor, and Nate Taylor with you here. Look, guys, I told you we'd talk more about Sneed when he was still totally going to be on the team on Thursday. Now here we are. Not a lot of surprises, fellas. It's just sort of been like a few days of the offseason, and it's like nobody even cares that Mike Dan is still a free agent.
And, I've been looking at various content of our guy Bobby down in Texas.
Yeah.
Watching Marquise and Rashee Rice exert themselves next to Patrick Mahomes. Shout out to Bobby. Stroop saying spring break 24. Guys, training. So, hey, we're only a few weeks away from OTAs. We're only a few weeks away from the offseason program, getting on the Zoom calls with the coaching staff, going over some, scheme evaluations. It's all right. It's totally all right.
It's a little bit weird, fittingly enough, but we're also within striking distance of draft season, and we'll begin to talk about that a little bit today. Seth, how are you doing? Or more accurately, what are you doing here during the show? That looks like Texas All 22?
That is Texas All 22. We are working on holy cow, don't drop the laptop, Seth. We are working on part 1 of Know Your Draft Crush. It's draft season. Know Your Draft Crush is back. One of my favorite things about off season is now I've been doing this long enough that I have like all these like series that I've come up with over the years, and it like feels like an event, even though it's just something I made up, which when you think about it, isn't that pretty much everything? Yeah. Like, it's like, that's just something we made up, but we're celebrating it, so why not? And
it's a perfect segue to the Sunshine Double. Does anybody know what the Sunshine Double is? No. Is it something they made up? Sure. I mean,
is this a tennis thing, Nate?
Of course it is, Josh.
Okay. All right.
Of course it is. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sunshine Double. It does not pertain to spring break, and it does not pertain to physical activities that are done late at night. It's actually about winning a tennis tournament.
No one thought that, Nate. I just want to clarify. That's Sunshine like, double. Hey, I'm sitting here writing on a piece of paper, and I don't mean that in a dirty way. Don't take me the wrong way. Like, no one thought that. Like, no one. I get the double entendres.
It's the part of the bit. It's a Sunshine Double. Okay, what else more do you need?
Honey, don't bother me. I'm in here doing a podcast. Not like that, though. Really weird, Nate. It's a weird bit.
So the Sunshine Double, ladies and gentlemen, is winning the Indian Wells 1000 tournament in California and then going across the country to Miami, one of my
because it's sunny in both places.
There you go, Seth. It is sunny in Miami most of the time when it's not raining, when it's not being, Florida. But yes, if you win the 1,000 tournament in Miami, essentially 2 weeks later, then you have won the Sunshine Double. And of course, our two nominees for this year are Iga Swiatek and Carlos Alcaraz. So there you go. There's your 2 minutes of tennis talk. And yeah, that's something we totally made up. No one goes and wins 2 events in Europe, 2 events in Asia, 2 events in, I don't know, even Canada, and says, oh, it's a so-and-so double. Nope, we only making it up for this time of the year to get people interested in tennis.
We're talking about fake drafts. I don't mean talking about the NFL draft. I mean, we're talking about mock drafts done by people who aren't the people who will be making the picks eventually. We're talking about scouting players who will never play for this team. I don't mean specifically A.D. Mitchell, Seth. I mean that you will watch film of many receivers who never take a snap for the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, like every holiday is like that. Like, I don't know, Seth, if you wanted to be like, well, the birth of Christ was an event that happened that we needed to... They decided to put that at the end of December for no reason. The timing of that even is totally
there was a reason. It just has nothing to do with when Jesus was actually born. And we don't need to... Why are we going to talk about old stuff, man?
What about
we're always out here.
Hey, what about that?
Hey.
What's a better way to get kids interested in Easter? Bunnies. There you go. Bunnies. Yes.
That's the classic Jim Gaffigan bit, you know. How about eggs? It's just like, eggs? Yeah, no, it's fine. There's a bunny.
Is Easter the most, like, aesthetically random holiday?
When you consider the historical context, is yes.
Because I'm thinking, like, it got pretty weird, and you're right. Like, a rabbit laying eggs... Rabbits are, I mean, it's just all sort of springtimey stuff. I mean, you know, Christmas, we have like a big fat man in a red suit with a big white beard that runs around and invades your home and leaves you trash or gifts or both.
And I'm tracking him. Get to bed. He's already on the East Coast.
St. Patrick's Day doesn't make any sense. That's kind of nothing. Tucker's gone from nonsense. I think the breaking one should stay, actually, Tucker. I think what we're breaking is the confines of the world of podcasting.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it is when there's so much going on right now with the Chiefs. It's a shame to break into nonsense. But you know what? There is something going on because even though it's completely and totally made up and complete fan fiction, because that's what your mock draft is, it is fan fiction. I don't follow college football. One of my favorite times of the year is to like start to kind of like, you know, and I follow people that follow college football. I know people who know them though. And so I just, it's so fun for me to be like, oh, hey, so, like, Marvin Harrison has a son? I bet he's good. Like, what? He's 6'4"? Man, I bet he's awesome. And, well, will the Chiefs have a chance? No. Oh. No, okay. Fair enough.
He's not even, Seth, he's not even working out. He's not even doing the pro day.
Wow, that's a huge red flag, by the way. That's the first thing I've learned. A lot of red flags there with Marvin Harrison Jr. Anyone who taken him in the top 31 would just be irresponsible.
I think so.
And so
picture Brock Bowers standing next to, I think it was Gronk. That's not a top 32 pick.
Brock.
Oh yeah, not even a little.
Every interview, Brock, tank every interview. All of a sudden, give weird medicals.
Yes.
Just
post a video of some sort,
Brock,
on draft day.
Yeah.
We don't need to go into exact details.
Let's get Brock a gas mask. Dude.
You know, a bong's not going to hit the same way in 2024.
That's 100% right.
But
that's 100% right.
That is true.
What device could we get you to plummet to the the bottom of the first round?
I think it would be a little too.
Have a needle in his neck to not be a.
That was exactly. I was like, I think it might be too dark if he's like, got a spoon and a lighter and he's melting something. Like that's a little too dark. It's like when Always Sunny. I'm going to reference Always Sunny in Philadelphia all the time now.
How many entire episodes of that show have you seen?
Probably like maybe 20. Okay. But like more than you would have thought. The problem is it's one of those shows, I'll start watching it and I will laugh and laugh. And then so I'll be like, man, I got to turn this off. Like this, I really shouldn't be watching this.
Then
the gang gets addicted to crack. It's like, come on.
The crucifix above your couch just starts like glowing at some point. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, shout out to...
You're Catholic, right?
Yeah, good. Good.
Yeah.
It's more or less the same,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, religion. Nah.
If there's one thing I could tell you about Baptists and Nazarenes is that we don't have any problems with any other denominations. So
None.
No, at all.
Very hard to find beef there.
So shout out to the girl on fire who says, girl on fire 25 says, new tennis court videos instead of pro days. Yes. Can I see Marvin Harrison run routes on an indoor tennis court? That obviously is gonna translate better to Sundays than doing routes on air in your college stadium. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What's the point of doing that?
Yeah. Why can't I see you turn the corner as a pass rusher in sneakers on an indoor soccer or indoor tennis
on an
court?
indoor. This is where like pro days, and you know what? I'm going to go on a rant. So instead of doing that, I'll try to shift us back.
Back out.
The Know Your Draft Crush series is starting. It's wide receivers again this year. I've actually, when I look back, that's allowed me to look back on the results of the last several years. My biggest miss was I thought Garrett Wilson was fine, but there were a couple guys I like better than him that haven't been as good as him. But I've hit better than 50% from the field, which Seth, that's crappy. That's better than NFL GMs. Let me tell you something.
Kidding.
And so I enjoy doing this. And so every year you get to come do it. It seems like it's always wide receiver. So like if Brett could just like draft 3 this year and just like, let's just throw enough mud at the wall, see what sticks, have a virtual Hunger Games for a training camp for wide receivers. Be like, hey, Hollywood, Rasheed, you guys are in? And let's see what happens, from here. I'm all for it. But I'm starting with Adonai Mitchell. He's the one who was requested by Chiefs Twitter. It was him or Xavier Worthy, who, by the way, the Chiefs signing Hollywood Brown does not mean they wouldn't be interested in Xavier Worthy. I understand you've got some skill set redundancy there, but being able to win at multiple levels of the field, which Brown can, and I think Worthy can, while being a deep threat, that's a good redundancy to have. That's like, oh, we can line both of you up here and do this. That's like a good thing. It's like, who else has some skill set redundancy? Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They're
Right.
really good at some of the same things, and I don't mind. It's like, hey, but Creed Humphrey and Joe Tooney have a lot of skill set redundancy. Well, yes, they do. But in a good way. Like you want that. Like, if George Kittle became available, I wouldn't say, well, him and Travis Kelce are both really good, at running intermediate routes. Can we get both of them? So anyway, Chiefs Kingdom though did not want to read about Xavier Worthy first. It's Adonai Mitchell and Josh. Just for you, I'm gonna unlock the first one. So that should be up tomorrow.
Just
Good.
for you.
Free for everyone.
Fantastic.
Just for
what
you.
would the point be of having that there for only the people who are paying through the nose an incredible $12 a year? Before we get fully into, we will spend more time in the draft side today than certainly we have at any point so far this offseason, because both of you guys have been working on draft content. But as we are here now, where at least the first wave of free agency is over, and maybe a couple waves of free agency have kind of come and gone, we'll get into 2 specific position groups that we touched on Tuesday in terms of the Chiefs at edge and at left tackle. But this is like super big picture that I'm sure will pull us into one of those position groups. But was there anything that where you guys stand now that you're a little bit surprised at either the state of the roster, where some hole did not get filled to this point, or anything the Chiefs? You can't tell me you're surprised by anything the Chiefs did do, because all they did was bring back Chris Jones, Drew Tranquill, add Hollywood Brown, and every defensive tackle who was on the roster last year. That's kind of the whole list. And also Mike Edwards is a Buffalo Bill since Tuesday's episode. That's kind of the one little news item. But now at this point in free agency, Nate, any surprises standing here on March 21st and looking at the roster as currently constructed?
Not a ton. I think the surprise is, considering all the expectations and the talk at the combine, I think the surprise does involve L'Jarius Sneed and the fact that the Chiefs don't have as much cap space as they perhaps wanted, or they sort of projected for this time after the first wave of free agency, right? They would love to be in that second tier, third tier market a little bit more than they are right now, but they're restricted to some degree because of L'Jarius Sneed's, $19.8 million franchise tag hit. So I don't know. I mean, I think had that gone a certain way, had like the trade happened earlier, maybe you could say, oh, well, left tackle, edge rusher. I think those are probably the two biggest right now. Before you head into the draft, and it sort of makes the draft even more prominent for like those specific positions. But the Chiefs have, I still want to remind people, the Chiefs have accomplished what they ultimately wanted to do when free agency began, which is retain Chris Jones and get a viable receiving option for Patrick Mahomes to at least build off of Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. So there are plenty of edge rushers out there, and there's at least a couple tackles available to them. Most notably, I still think Donovan Smith is a call away.
Seth, before we do go to those two position groups, I just realized we don't have like a standalone Sneed thing, and since Nate mentioned it, I did want to circle back on him again today, as we kind of teased on Tuesday, which is the fact that now things are quiet. We don't have to reset all of that. That was on Tuesday's show, but in your spot right now, I'm kind of making you be Brett Veach part 4 here, maybe. What are you comfortable with in the L'Jarius Sneed saga? Because it does seem like the offers out there have been somewhere at the end of round 2, maybe it's a 3 and something else, and maybe not ever getting an actual 2 offered. Wherever that's settled, obviously the contract dispute has been brought up as a main slower. I mean, Nate said Tuesday a trade was done and the contracts got in the way. So knowing all of those moving parts in the backstory, Seth, when there is a chance to just try to get him to play out the franchise tag, but knowing that this is a long lead up, and I promise it's not leading you into a break. It should take me a very long time to summarize this saga.
I appreciate you said my name multiple times because I can see you seeing me looking down, and you're
do
like
see your eyes being low,
like
and it
every
does
20
concern me.
seconds, like hey.
Eyes up.
I'm sitting here as you're talking, just like,
Ooh, interesting. Oh, L'Jarius Sneed. But there's a chance to have him play out the franchise tag on a 1-year deal, and then you redo some of this next offseason, and he just leaves for a part of the compensatory formula, not a 1 in 1 out. You know, it's the formula. Right. Or you try to get the hometown deal done. I don't know where your ceiling for that would be. But in what might be the last time that we talk about L'Jarius Sneed until there is some sort of real movement again, which could happen closer to the draft as well. What's your comfort level in having L'Jarius Sneed play out the contract, the franchise tag, or would you be trying to make a longer term deal work, get a little cap flexibility, even as most of those big name free agents are gone?
the Chiefs are in a unique situation, in my opinion, to where they kind of get to look at mostly a win-win, at least in terms of 2024. I do think probably in terms of long-term flexibility, they would probably prefer to get the trade done with a decent return. But they are in a position that because they like Sneed as much as they do, because he's as good as he is, especially in their system, because he knows the defense as well as he does, and because they showed last year, you saw kind of a proof of concept of this defensive group and being built from the back forward, with the exception of Chris Jones. And, Karlaftis came along, that kind of stuff. But they basically were like, the better the secondary has gotten the last couple of years, the more you've seen them kind of take over games. We can't ignore how dominant the defense was last year. Like, you give the Chiefs their normal-ish offense last year minus just 10%, and they probably go something like 15-2. They were so many games they should have won with even an average offensive performance. So they can say, hey, we keep him another year. And I really like that you made this point. People talk about the compensatory pick formula. If he leaves, then we get a third-round pick. Not necessarily. It goes into the formula, and it's certainly a strong addition to the formula. And so there's some value in that. But one, it's one more year delayed. And two, it's not a guaranteed third-round pick. It just goes into the formula. So it's not, I would pin that value as something more like a late fourth-rounder or fifth-round pick. So it's not as valuable, of course. But the Chiefs are in a position to where, if someone's just offering a third, but maybe a third is enough to do it. But anything, they're just in a good position, because if he stays, yes, they lose some flexibility for this year. But honestly, when I was doing the free agency stuff and taking a look at the roster as it is, this is a very complete roster. That got lost a little bit last year with how much the wide receiver room affected the performance of the offense as a whole, how much the madness around Jawan Taylor affected him all year. Check out Jawan Taylor's film down the stretch last year, and I think you're going to say, there he is. There's the guy, at least the start of it, there's the guy they paid for. The guy that could hold up in pass protection very well in most circumstances. I mean, he played pretty well in the Super Bowl. Now, to be fair, Nick Bosa was doing a lot of contain, so that helps. But they don't have a ton of holes. They've got a few very obvious ones. The good thing about a few very obvious ones where you don't need like a really high level starter is those guys are out there. So they're not desperate. I'm comfortable if they go with Sneed this year, but I do think long term, what makes the most sense, it would be them being able to kind of move on. Not necessarily, I don't think an extension, barring, like you said, a hometown discount makes sense given the team build everywhere else. So I'm comfortable with it both ways. They've kind of got a win-win. Well, either way, they sacrifice a little something because say, they trade Sneed, they should still have a very, very good defense, but, you take away the odds of it being as elite as last year. But both scenarios I'm pretty comfortable with, and I think the Chiefs are too. And so that's not a bad spot to be.
Nate, the one thing that you might be able to shine a little light on that we haven't totally dug into is I think L'Jarius Sneed, once it eventually got to that point, would just play under the tag, I imagine. I certainly can't see him missing game checks and accruing a whole bunch of fines like Chris Jones did. So what do you think, what would that path look like to you if it's just like, hey, our best extension offer is not going to get you the money you want, and you're not getting the money you want from somebody else, so we'll play it on the tag. Is that something that you think spills into training camp? Maybe it's an off-season activity, missing some voluntary stuff, or what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick because actually I wrote about the L'Jarius Sneed situation kind of late last night, and I think it'll appear in The Athletic tomorrow morning.
Excellent.
I just want to be clear on that. A few things. He doesn't want to play on the tag. The Chiefs know that. Every team in the league knows that. That would potentially acquire him in a trade. So if you acquire him in a trade and then you don't offer the extension, that's a high risk for the Colts or the Lions because you would only be guaranteeing yourself 1 year of service. And, of course, that player would theoretically be guaranteed free agency because you do not want to franchise tag that player a second time. With everything that's gone on, the race now, or the timeline, I should say, the clock sort of ticks to about this time next month, like April 21st. As I spoke to Randy Mueller yesterday, our sort of front office analyst who's been a general manager with the Saints and the Miami Dolphins, he makes this great point that the reason why trade talks could cool now is because we do have pro days. We are in mock draft season. Every team is trying to prepare its own draft board. What do they feel comfortable with? And then you may look at that draft board and you may look at what other teams need and say, okay, I feel a little bit more comfortable acquiring L'Jarius Sneed because getting that player already of NFL talent, already proven himself, is more valuable to us than drafting and developing a player at that position with a first, second, third round pick. If L'Jarius Sneed does not get traded before or during the draft, then the runway gets even longer for him in Kansas City to agree to some extension. Now, they could do what they did with Chris Jones last year, which is, hey, we rip up the contract, we give you some guarantees, but it's not going to take up this much amount of the cap, which is basically $20 million. Or we could do a 2-year or 3-year contract where you get even more guaranteed money than the 20 you would get on the tag. And then we get some relief in terms of structuring it long term to where we can get out of the deal with you being 29. So basically it ensures your roster spot for the next 2 seasons with a 3-year deal that both parties know you're going to enter free agency for the first time at age 29 versus being prevented from free agency at age 27. Hopefully all this makes sense. L'Jarius, I think through much of this experience, has sort of reassessed, and it's sort of reaffirmed to him his desire to want to play for the Chiefs. As I've said earlier in the episodes, and I've done a little bit more reporting, which will be in The Athletic, he's not thrilled, and he would like to be both given faith and trust that what he has done for the Chiefs, he could do for another franchise. That level has not been given to him, and that's not even talking about necessarily the contract. Now, I know Matt Verderam and some few others have said that he wants to be the highest paid cornerback. Me nor Diana Rossini can report that ourselves. No one has told us that specifically, but the assumption, and Randy Mueller agrees with this, and this is where he feels like it's tough now, could be easier closer to the draft, is every negotiation starts with the baseline of $20 million per year, at least for the next 2 to maybe 3 years of the contract. So hopefully that's a general idea of it's a complicated situation. And further to Seth's point, I talked to Cody Alexander of Match Quarters yesterday, and his feeling is L'Jarius Sneed's role for the Chiefs defense last year was perfect. That may not be the case next year because they have Trent McDuffie, because he is saying something that we can talk to a little bit more as we get further in the offseason. But he, again, Match Quarters, this is his area of expertise. Secondary
and
play.
Cody is, if you don't mind me breaking in,
yes,
I subscribe to Cody's stuff and read it religiously.
Mm-hmm.
And when I miss one and don't read it, I save it to my inbox to go back later. You can learn more from Match Quarters about the game. And some of it's really, really dense and tough to read through to it in a sense. But it's the type of stuff that coaches subscribe to. It's really, really good stuff. And he knows Spag's defense up and down. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Perfect, because I think most people will say blitz heavy, a lot of man heavy, a lot of, some simulated stuff, some zone stuff. And Cody's saying that's not real anymore, guys. And he projects that they're going to be even more zone base behind more exotic blitzes next year.
Interesting.
So if L'Jarius Sneed is not on the roster and he believes Trent McDuffie can do everything, you could get even more disguise heavy with zone looks behind pressure. Whereas it was somewhat exotic, but every team knows L'Jarius Sneed is on that guy specifically.
And Sneed is more comfortable in man looks, and specifically press stuff. The differentiating factor between him and McDuffie is that short area burst, quickness, and hips. Sneed just doesn't have his excellent corner, top 5 in the league, which it says something about how he's maximized his traits where he wins, but he doesn't have some of those he ran the route for Deebo Samuel type snaps.
Yeah.
That's not Sneed. And so it's a little bit of a different gig for him in terms of where he can go. He can play in the slot and he's good there. But he's McDuffie. Again, it's so hard when you've got two guys that are so high level because you feel like you're bashing one. But that's some really great commentary by Cody, and I would tend to agree with it.
I think it's fascinating, and we'll talk about L'Jarius Sneed more whenever we talk about L'Jarius Sneed again, just as the news recommends and requires. I'm going to kind of combine the tackle situation with the draft stuff. So one kind of remaining free agent bucket in particular, I do want to dig into it. I mentioned Mike Dana's name earlier. Seth, you've written about it in the newsletter. Nate, you've talked about the defensive end group a little bit. This is the one spot for me where I am beginning to find my footing in what I think of the current defensive end group, and the fact that it's probably not making me a whole lot of friends out of Manhattan, I suppose. I don't know. But Seth, Mike Dana should just be on this football team. This is not my spot to be like, pay him whatever. But if Mike Dana is suddenly back on this depth chart, what does it do for the defensive end group immediately in your eyes?
I have an idea, but go ahead, Seth.
It makes
Let's take a break.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Seth, it's a great point, and that's what I was going to say, too. It suddenly lowers everybody not named George Karlaftis one slot down in the depth chart. It takes a guy who played like 75% of the defensive snaps and puts him back at the top of the rotation, that being Dana, a guy who's continually played more and more every year, who can go inside-outside, which Spags loves, which Joe Cullen loves, and now you're suddenly not making Felix Anudike-Uzomah start in week 1. B.J. Thompson is no longer your number 3 or 4 defensive end in week 1, because Charles Omenihu, who probably isn't going to be back in time for week 1, just by the way those injuries usually work. Seth, it was beautifully said, and I'm glad I got to say it again.
You're welcome. I just don't understand. Like, you know, there are times where, like, when it happens, I'm like, yeah, I kind of saw that coming, but it's fun for the bit. And, like, I've got people in the comments, oh, that one was obvious. Let me just tell you, that one, there's times where I'll play possum a little bit, mostly because I know Josh loves possums. That was one, I think it cut off before it hurt me, but I audibly went, oh, crap. Like, that one, just unbelievable.
We got to get the ads in, and this is the only sustainable way to actually do it. Seth, right. Mike Dana should be on this football team. Your thoughts?
The way you phrased it was really well said. You and I do this together way too often.
Too much, man. Too much.
But it really, I just cannot emphasize enough the fact that I'm sure they have hopes for FAU, but hopes are not, and BJ Thompson, but you can't hinge the plan on that right now.
Sure, I can.
I hope Scott Moore is wide receiver 2 this year, but I'm not planning on it.
Young legs, Seth, young legs.
And young legs are great. It's so funny because like last year they finally, once Omenihu came onto the scene, you finally saw with like a legit, with kind of a second dude, and with Karlaftis taking another step forward and Dana playing pretty well. Like you saw like, and Wharton came on later on in the year. That was nice. You saw like, oh, that's what, with a complimentary pass rush around Chris Jones, man, that's kind of terrifying. They did some stuff. And now it's like, well, Omenihu's hurt. I know he's voiced optimism, but I mean, we've said this before. I mean, he got hurt in the AFC Championship, and it's a torn ACL. Some guys come right back the next year and are just still great. Most, even once they're back, need a little time. Now, Omenihu is he's a power-based player. So that might change things. He doesn't need to plant the same, well, you got to trust the leg. Yeah. So you have George Karlaftis. That's your proven defensive end right now. And I'm done. Like that's, yes. and I mean,
you can be optimistic and excited about the young guys while acknowledging they didn't play last year.
Right.
Seth, his name is Chris Jones. That's your second edge rusher, baby.
Chris exactly. All those defensive tackles back. Oh my god!
And now you've taken the greatest 3-tech pass rusher in the league the last 3 years and taken him off of 3-tech. And it's like, and you know what? That makes sense in a way if you have Mike Dana or if you have Charles
situations. Yes, on certain situations.
Because you know who rushes better from 3-tech than he does from the edge? Mike Dana. And so, like, you can actually get by with that then, but you need another dude. Like, and you know, Emmanuel Ogba's out there. He played well in Spag's system, but like
you're encroaching on my idea. What are you doing, Seth?
What I meant to say was I can't think of literally anyone else in the league other than Mike Dana. It's either Mike Dana or a giant crap sandwich. There's no other answers here, Nate.
Okay, so of course I've watched Love is Blind. I'm a little late, but I'm on it, all right? And of course, we're at the part of the show where they're out of the pods and they're talking to one another on the beach in the Dominican Republic, somewhere nice, somewhere exotic. And I can't believe this man literally said, yo, she's got a great tush. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I didn't know Jalen Hurts was on that show.
And
the Eagles are the only word association I have for the word tush.
Hey, my guy. Hey, back in the day, kids, we used to be on AOL. That's right. Plug it into the phone, and I'm trying to talk to this girl. If she tells you what she looked like and you ain't seen her, disregard. Of course, she's not gonna look like Megan Fox, my guy. What is wrong with you? But also, she's pretty. You ain't gonna look at her butt. Anyway, to bring this home, we're at that point in the show or free agency where you say, "Look, man, Mike Dana looking kind of cute out there," as the Miami Dolphins and the Chiefs go, I dated Emmanuel Ogbah, but he looks, I've dated him before, but he looks more mature now, more sure of himself. You know, maybe he grew some facial hair. I mean, I didn't have
last year.
Yeah, I got needs. I got, he's got facial hair. I mean, he's a father now. I mean, so many things have changed, and I just,
This is when Seth goes back to charting A.D. Mitchell snaps,
yep,
by the way.
I'm just interested. Guys, if you haven't watched Love is Blind, God bless you. These they're gonna get us, every single one of them. And what I mean by that is our significant others. So, they're gonna just get us to watch the show.
Oh, okay.
What is up with the gold cups, though? I just want to see what you're drinking, even if it's agua.
I might have to watch this show. If I watch the show, will they sign Mike Dana?
Maybe.
Depends on what they think of his tush.
Yeah. But interestingly enough, I do think Mike Dana could work in Miami, and Emmanuel Ogbah could work in Kansas City, each on 1-year deals, just to see what it's like.
Yeah,
so now that's white swap. Now you've gone from
human condition. The human condition was so well described there on both the team's part and the player's part. Because you know what the simple thing would be there? Hey, I've already got a house here, whether you're renting or buying. I read the word old in the comments. Hey, anyway, so you could just stay there. And the teams, you've got guys fit in your systems just fine. But seriously, this is the human condition. Like, what's that over there on the other side of that fence? That grass looks like it's a slightly darker shade of green. But what if I just went over the fence and saw what was over there? It's like you've got a perfectly nice, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2,600 square feet with a nice study.
It's not enough.
You've got a paved driveway. There's no dirt coming up to there, getting all over your car. You've got a couple of trees out in the yard.
I'm tired of the routine, Seth. I'm tired. I need something new.
I don't even like this Bermuda stuff, man. I look at that grass next door. That's some nice grass over there. Bermuda.
And that's just I'm sorry, but that just slayed me the idea.
Seth.
You know what we should do? We should have him go over there and you go over there. You know what? Einhorn is Finkel. Finkel is Einhorn. Dana is Ogbah. Ogbah is Dana. Like, you're not appreciably changing things. They're a pair of defensive ends who are solid, not great, who win inside just as well as better than they win outside, that are solid against the run, high effort guys. They don't win much one-on-one on the edge. Like, why would you?
But Seth, Emmanuel Ogbah smells different, okay? And I need different in my life right now.
Brett Beach, I swear, I know you don't listen. Well, I don't know that. I would assume you don't. Also, if you are, come on, man. Could you spend that time calling DJ Chark instead? But anyway,
maybe listen on double speed.
Although I will say this is one thing. I do think it's easier to sign in a new guy than to bring back someone who was hoping for a bigger contract from you, because, that, and I get that. Pride matters.
Especially as a first-time free agent, which is the case for Mike Dana.
Yes, and I want him to get the bag. I feel like he earned it. I'm surprised. And I know Spotrac had a $14 million a year valuation on him. I think they overshot that.
PFF's ended up being closer to 2 for 15 guaranteed, something like that. I had it up a second ago, see if I can grab it.
And so I'm sorry, but that I don't know why, but that got to me in terms of the human condition.
It's
like the wife swap thing. And man, I like my routine. I like that I know when I get home tonight and I walk in the door, I know exactly how Jazz is going to react. I mean,
Slight disappointment.
Yes, but it's predictable slight disappointment, Joshua. And it's my slight disappointment. And I probably earned it. And and I don't have to ask if she's disappointed in me. I already know she is.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's comforting. Truly.
It is. It's a
PFF
warm
had
blanket
Dana's
of my own
deal.
inadequacy.
They had 3 years, $42.75 million with $14.75 guaranteed. So again, 2 years, 15-ish million.
Yeah.
If he's looking around right now and was saying like, all right, I'd take 2 for $12 fully guaranteed. Is that a deal you'd give him?
If you had the cap space.
Well, right, I guess, and right. So that's good point.
And here's where we are.
All
kids.
of it's next year. And all of it's next year.
The it's just something that has come to my mind over the last 3 days when I try to make educated possible scenarios for guys. When you look at the actual free agency rankings and like who needs what and who's still out there and playing time and positional value, role, all those things, it's a perfect match. I mean, I think Mike McDaniel should give Mike Dana a call, and then in response, Brett Veach should call Emmanuel Ogbah.
Oh, that's it, buddy. Oh, you're taking out my ex? Well, you know what I'm gonna do here? I mean, gosh. I don't know why this annoys me so much, but it does.
Put on your good shoes and your good outfit.
I'm associating the NFL with marriage way too much. I'm like, how could you, Brett? That's just not how this works. I don't know why, but it just, you know what? The same is okay.
Too bad they don't play this year on the schedule. Drats.
Mike Dana revenge game not happening and not to the playoffs. I'm going to combine our next two things. So, Tucker, you can kind of pick whichever one you want. We've talked about the tackles a little bit on Tuesday. We mentioned Mekhi Becton and David Bakhtiari. And as Nate said earlier, Donovan Smith still makes a whole lot of sense. Nate, 30-second version, I guess, on the tackle position. Do you think that the most likely thing right now is that the tackles on the roster will be the tackles on the roster the moment the draft begins, and then they'll find a veteran after the fact? Or do you think they want to try to get somebody in that spot sooner rather than later? Because also a thin group behind him. Prince Tagovailoa was, I think, an exclusive rights free agent who didn't get it would have been like a $3 million deal. So I think Prince is still out there, and it's like Lucas Niang and Chu Godric are the other tackles on the roster right now, other than, of course, Juwan Taylor and Wanya Morris.
Right. So there's a little bit of comfort because you do have Wanya on a rookie contract. There's a little bit of comfort because Donovan Smith is still out there. And when I went through multiple mock drafts, with that kind of being in the back of your mind, you don't feel like you have to make a tackle selection in the first 2 rounds. That's just the reality. I know, is it Mekhi Becton that people have discussed? Mm-hmm. He's probably going to sign, I would assume, before the draft.
That would make sense.
Just FYI, Donovan Smith, he already did it a year ago. He doesn't feel the urge that he has to get out in front immediately. So again, he's the phone call away, either right before the draft, during, or after.
And it kind of makes sense for him to wait, because if the Chiefs do get to 32 and there's a tackle there they like, they've already signed Donovan Smith. Yes. Now Donovan Smith might be a veteran backup to pick at 32. That it makes sense for Smith.
Correct. So that is the update as of right now. And when I go through the scenarios where you can trade, I didn't want to execute a trade. I'll just be honest, people. I didn't want to execute a trade in the Athletic beat writer mock draft because I ain't got time for that. Okay.
You know who had time for that? Alec Lewis had time for that.
He gave us see, I did my thing so the youngin can get buckets. And Alec Lewis was like, do you actually, Josh, it's probably better if you tell it and I react from an audio standpoint of what our guy did.
So Alec Lewis at the helm of the Minnesota Vikings got up to 3 because Drake May was still there at 3, and he takes Drake May, and the Vikings give up number 11, number 23, a 2025 first-round pick, and a 2026 second-round pick for the privilege of going up there to spend number 3 overall on Drake May.
Crazy. Oh, Drake May.
You know what's crazy?
Jay Daniels.
You know what's really crazy?
Yes.
They might do that.
Kinda, yeah.
I think that is a very educated swing from Alec.
Yeah, and it's really entertaining for us maybe not so the Vikings, because do you want to see Sam Darnold play 17 games? I don't. I don't at all.
Particularly.
So
why would you pay someone $10 million though if you're not gonna? But yeah, that's neither.
You gotta get him off the scent, Seth. Get him off the scent. No, we got a starter. Hey, make that phone call.
We're just trading for first round picks in mid-March. We could do anything with them, though. We could do anything.
Who knows? Maybe we want to trade up for another receiver.
Justin Jefferson. Get him off the scent.
Silly. But Nate,
yes,
you get there at pick 32 in this athletic mock draft. And you do go offensive tackle for the Chiefs in this world. Why was that the pick? You've done this twice now too. Wasn't your 1.0 you go tackle at 32? You just said you don't feel like the Chiefs have to go tackle in the first 2 rounds.
They don't have to.
Is this the board falling this way? And then in the 32nd overall pick, who did you take?
Yes, this is the board falling Kingsley. Go ahead and say it, Josh.
I didn't make the pick. I don't know what you're talking about.
Damn it. I'm sorry.
With
Kingsley.
the 32nd overall pick in the athletic beat writer draft, Nate Taylor and the Kansas City Chiefs selected Kingsley Suamatia. Maybe it's another. I think there's another syllable at the end that I'm going to get before he's a Chief. Matiata. There it is. There's only one T. I knew it was going to be tough.
I don't care.
I hate getting people's names wrong because it feels like we didn't try.
Kingsley.
I'm sorry. He can go by. I'll tell you what. If the Chiefs draft a tackle out of BYU in the first round, Andy Reid's just calling him King. I don't even think he's getting Kingsley. I think he's just saying, we got King at 32, and so we can call him. We can call him King.
He'll say, no, that's the young Cougar from my alma mater, from BYU. That's the young Cougar, young Coug.
That's a lot to say when you're calling him out in practice, though. Hey, young Coug from my alma mater.
Coug.
Get those hands lower.
I think it's just King. I think it's one syllable,
King. Yeah. Okay, that actually works. But yeah, this is the way the board fell because they took too many edge rushers. They took too
Rich
many
fan says
receivers.
Suamatea, which would I think we're getting all the syllables in there. So thank you, Rich. I hope that's correct.
Now, did I look at my guy Cooper DeJean? Did I think Cooper DeJean could fall to 32? Possibly. He went 22 to the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, Nate, well, go get us a receiver. Well, the Patriots took the guy that Seth is reviewing right now. Xavier Worthy still feels like a second-round pick. Hey, what about Darius Robinson? Edge rusher, Missouri. The freaking Buffalo Bills took him at 28. So there wasn't someone that I was in love with that I was ready to be excited to make a pick. By the way, Michael Penix Jr., 21, to the Las Vegas Raiders. Sign me up. Because he hasn't seen anybody like Chris Jones. I'm just going to be honest. Byron Murphy's already gone. 5
wide receivers ended up going ahead of you there.
Yep.
Ladd McConkey went 33.
Yeah. And look, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to fall in love with Ladd McConkey.
It feels to me like Ladd McConkey, I'm
not ready.
All I've done is look at him.
I'm not ready.
And by look at him, I don't mean look at his film. I've just looked at him. Mm-hmm. And I think he's probably, from what I can tell, he's a guy that really gives 110% each and every snap. He lives in his gym. Really precise route runner. He definitely has a lot of nuance to his game, a lot of grit there.
Mm-hmm.
Really
gym
has
rat.
gotten better. Yeah,
he's in the gym.
Rat, knows the game, really understands
coach's son. He's literally a coach's son.
Can he play outside of the slot? He's got to be in the slot 100%. Right?
Got a lot of wiggle and intelligence. So, very nuanced in the route running game.
Great culture guy.
Ladd loves himself a really good potato casserole.
I think it's
grew up watching Julian Edelman. Guys, he spent hours on YouTube watching Julian Edelman,
Thank you, Kenneth Young. He's sneaky athletic. It really sneaks up on you. And by sneaks up on you, you mean, holy cow, that guy can move. I didn't expect that.
Can I?
Well, why? I couldn't say.
Well, I
You
mean,
just don't look athletic.
you know.
Well, what do you mean? He's small and he's built decently and he's really muscled. Why wouldn't you think he's athletic?
It's really good for the bit that his
know.
name does sound sort of like a slur.
McConkey.
It does, like, it sounds like if someone called me a lad McConkey, I'd be like,
McConkey.
is that offensive? Should I be offended by that?
Yeah, never. He reads the field so well. Yeah, good head on his shoulders. This is. I'm just reading the concept. Underrated quickness. A real ranch guy. A real ranch guy. Makes all the right decision.
Yep.
High potential to be the new Mahomes' best friend.
Yep. His girlfriend will immediately get into real estate. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, come on.
Hey, here's one thing for our listeners. One thing about Lad McConkey. The very first thing
Quarterback
you'll ever
in high
read about
school,
him,
I imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, most of these guys were quarterback in high school. The very first thing you read, like with every one of them, is like, no, he doesn't play like Julian Edelman. Like that's like the first thing you read every time. Like, no, that is not. He has legitimate deep speed, and they always have to like caps legitimate.
Hey, what if he's Braxton Berrios? He got a little Braxton Berrios in him.
Where are your recent ancestors from? Just no reason. We're just wondering.
I don't want to fall in love yet. But let me tell you something, kids. I remember watching it live and I said, ain't no way they let that boy with that complexion run a double route on you and get that wide open. And the Tennessee corner said, hell no. Why is the ball over my head?
Yeah, there's no way this guy's running a nine. Hey,
he running the out and up against us.
This guy that probably salts his chicken is running a double route. Sorry, Sean Kurtz, shout out. That's funny.
Like, guys, go watch Lad McConkey's 37-yard touchdown pass. It's still with Stetson Bennett. This is actually more applicable tape because Georgia was, look, they were a champion trying to go for a three-peat. It's really hard to watch. Not like there's any correlation to that coming up in the next several months. But anyway, the Tennessee corner, I'm looking at it now. Holy smokes, he's 9 yards off, out and up. He bites on the out so hard that he's still crispy to this day.
I've watched a few of Lad's snaps, and I'm actually going to save him for a few because I'm just not sure. He does look like he runs really good routes, and I don't know how am I supposed to write this. Incredible footwork.
Incredible footwork.
Just
Rich
clearly.
Rich in the comments says his trick play name with Andy is definitely called 23andMe.
I love also too that D-Mike says high potential. Obviously could be Mahomes' best friend, but also he says, Nate didn't see a prospect that he wanted to do the sunshine double with. And you know what? Lad McConkey might get us there. If I spend enough time with Lad on the beach, we can get some sunshine doubles in. You and me, buddy. You play the net, I'll play the the baseline, and we can make this game work,
Oh man. That is I feel like this started by talking about the tackle from BYU. There was
sorry.
Oh, right,
yes.
that guy. Yeah, Kingsley.
Because he left Lad McConkey on the board. He was right there.
Suamataia. There we go. I'm gonna get there by draft time. My apologies.
So look, it seemed to be the most sensible thing to do, to have a maybe potential plug and play tackle, or at least to have competition with two young guys, him and Wanya Moores, for the starting role to protect Patrick Mahomes' blind side. Now, I still think Andy Reid and Brett Veach still lean more on the veteran to do that than particularly the younger player. But it just seems sensible, even though who knows, guys, in 2 weeks, I could be head over heels for Lad McConkey. He could propose to me with me on the other side of the wall. Look, guys, I don't know.
His name might as well be Shooter McGavin or Rich McCracken or, it's a generic, the bad guy on the varsity team name for a teen movie. Oh, that Lad McConkey. It's just
Rich.
like, well, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You edited. It sounds bad.
Hey. Shout out to Rich. Rich fan who says Cooper DeJean versus Lad McConkey on third down will leave the world breathless. Are neither one of these guys seniors? Where was this for the Senior Bowl? Is there a Junior Bowl? Why do I have tape on this? Okay, 1-on-1 running here out. Let's see the hips, DeJean. Let's see it. I love Cooper DeJean. That's who I absolutely love. God, he is so good. I know that most draft analysts say, look, he's not the best cornerback in the draft. Not to me, mother bleeper. Okay? He was carrying the entire team. All right? Cooper DeJean is Larry Bird. Okay? Get it through your head.
I'm sorry. Ice Pyro just commented that Lad McConkey's a Hallmark Christmas antagonist.
Ooh. She goes back to her hometown. She meets a Christmas tree farmer, but her boyfriend Lad McConkey in the big city, he's got a whole portfolio he's working on trying to get dividends.
You know Lad McConkey is a Wall Street bro who really corrects you. It's like, well, no. I don't work stocks. I work high yield bonds. Like, or some just the worst.
And also he's pressuring this woman to get married the moment he comes on screen. He's like, look, we gotta get married. We gotta move you out of this place. We gotta go up to the big city. You know? Yeah.
Yep. Gosh, that Lad McConkey, he would do that.
He sounds like the white guy in the Key and Peele skit. Like at the end when it's just all of those Key and Peele names, and then Lad McConkey, Iowa. I know Georgia, but it would be Iowa for the bit. It just reminds me of on the Chappelle Show when he'd be a white newscaster. That would totally be, well, I am Lad McConkey. It's all there.
And nothing is funnier than Dave Chappelle's white dude voice. It is the greatest. Oh, I'm sorry.
Man,
I really hope that he ends up being a chief, and that this is a bit we get to speak for.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna do you right. Okay, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna take some time over the next week or so, really dive into the Lad McConkey tape. Maybe get some interviews, maybe see what he's like, in the quote game. My number one is still Cooper DeJean, guys. I can't have two. I can't have two. But I'm gonna give it the old college try. I'm gonna do justice to both of them. There can only be one. But I love Cooper DeJean. Now, I was at the combine when Cooper DeJean said, no, I'll do whatever the coaches want. I'll play any position. And I said, stop it. I hope you say that to me, but to Mike Tomlin, you look him dead in your eye and say, do you want a number one corner? I don't care that y'all took Joey Porter Jr. last year. It's me, baby. Jason Sehorn wishes he had my skills.
He'll play guard if they ask him to. Seth, the only other thing here is I know you're starting this right now with the Know Your Draft Crush series, looking at the receivers coming to the Chief of the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com very, very soon. Do you have enough on Adonai Mitchell to have at least a feeling right now of where he fits? Because by the time Tuesday comes around, you're going to have 6 or 7 of these receivers totally written up, I imagine.
That would be fun. I actually got to preach.
Don't lie about that.
I got to preach on Palm Sunday, so I should probably prepare for that somewhat.
Tell him about the good news about Lad McConkey. Just the good news.
That'll play. Anyway, much like Lad McConkey as he rode into Jerusalem, there's gotta be the disciples. They were willing to do whatever it took.
Christ came in riding on Lad McDonkey, and he brought that in.
And the amount of applause you'll never forget what that sounds like in the ears. You'll never forget the amount of applause coming down the street. Or the pavement, or the dirt road.
McConkey going to high point a deep ball, he ascended.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So anyway, Adonai Mitchell, there's a really good joke there about Adonai Mitchell is not sneaky athletic. But I'm just not going to do
athletic, yeah.
Well, one's first name is Lad, and one's first name is Adonai. I mean, Seth, this is like when we did the Legarius and Jamar thing. What are we doing?
Tell me about the
Nate is
raw, untapped athletic talent. Of
Just say
Adonai
his
Mitchell.
name, and I'll tell you where he's from. Oh yeah, that's below the Mason-Dixie. Yep.
Seth, do you think
I
do you
heard
think-
that sometime, yo? He not in the Northeast. I'll tell you that.
Do you think the Chiefs' offensive coaching staff can polish Adonai Mitchell to becoming a well-rounded NFL wide receiver, Seth? All that talent.
Say it. Say your name for me, son, one more time. Legarious. Okay, let me write that down. Legarious.
Is there a comma in
Yeah.
there
Oh, yeah.
somewhere, an apostrophe perhaps?
Apostrophe somewhere.
Oh, they call you Bo Peep. Oh. We got something we can work with, y'all.
Oh my god,
That's the biggest. Honestly, in retrospect, the biggest upset of recent Kansas City Chiefs history is that Thacarius Bo Pete Keys was not a Pro Bowl corner at any point
yeah,
in his
that's right.
time here. Like it's honestly kind of disappointing.
Shocking.
No,
Yeah.
that is. So Adonai Mitchell, I'm actually just through. I've reviewed 3 games of his so far, only one from 2023. I can see the jump from 22 to 23, which makes sense. You know, he went from being like 21 to 22. You know, I think Texas utilized him better than Georgia did. I can see why he transferred. I'll just say this. I'm going to be writing about him, and obviously it's going to be available for everyone to see. I think he ran like a 4.3, 4.40. That doesn't quite show up on the tape so far, but I'm only through one game in 2023. But you know what does is, Josh, you're not going to believe this. Adonai Mitchell runs really nuanced routes. He really sets guys up well. He finds the blind spot really well. It's interesting. You'd think a guy he blew up the combine, and so I kind of expected him to kind of like to jump out on film with his athleticism, like Zay Flowers with his speed and quickness last year. I was like, holy crap, that guy can move. But with Mitchell, he's got really good acceleration. You can kind of see a little bit of Rashee Rice in him in that, honestly, I don't know that top gear is there, even though I know that the back half of the 40, he was flying. It just doesn't quite show up on the field, but he accelerates well. He runs really good routes, and he's got unbelievable hands. Like, he catches everything. And so I like him so far. I'm going to get through these next 3 games. And I always try to like set like a tier system kind of where, you know, guys I'd be thrilled if they drafted in the first round, or if they even if they traded up a little to get them. That's like my tier 1. And I'm obviously not looking at
Big
Harrison
3,
Jr.
basically.
Yeah, neighbors. I'm not even paying
Dunze.
attention. Yeah, because those 3, my understanding is they're not even going to be close.
Smoked. Yep. Not even. Nope. Nowhere. Nope.
And so I really, so far, I think he might be one right now. Like if someone said you can't review any more film, I would say he's someone that, you know, if he's available at 32, I'd be okay with it. But he hasn't quite jumped out to me to the I'd be great with it at this point yet. Partly because I really do see a little bit of Rashee Rice in him in some senses. And I'm just not quite sure he's a boundary guy yet because contact slows him down more than I think it should. You know, he's starting to learn to dip his shoulder a little bit. So we'll check on that. So that's a lot on him. But again, I've got multiple games. I might come on next week and be like, oh man, I was wrong. Like,
Yeah. If there's any significant changes in that, we'll talk about it on Tuesday, and you can read it, and everyone can read it at the Chief of the North newsletter for free. Because Seth's running a charity over there, I guess. You actually have to watch his Palm Sunday sermon to access the 80 Mitchell film review. It's just he's gonna intersperse gifs of his own sermon in there. But you can read that coming up soon. Nate has Nate and all of the Athletics beat writers have the Athletic beat writer mock draft. The first round is all done there, and you can see everything that leads up to Nate's pick and then his selection. And Nate sounds like he's gonna have something on L'Jarius Sneed probably coming out tomorrow as well. We are already over the hour mark, so it seems like I'm not going to be able to get to my off-season lessons today. We'll try to get to that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But we should have plenty of time then. You know, this off-season's long, and certainly at some point we're going to do a show less than an hour before we get to the last topic.
Sure.
With that being said, Nate, tell us about your sunshine doubles or whatever you want to say to get us out of here.
You're right on it, Josh. Love the idea of maybe trading them just a few spots and pulling off the Chiefs' white sunshine double. Let's do it. you know what? I can be talked into just about anything. And going up to get, I mean, look, guys, based on complexion, they got close in 2022 with George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie. We got to go the full sunshine now. Got to go the full sunshine. Let's trade up. Let's trade. Unfortunately, L'Jarius Sneed for cap purposes, not for talent, for us to trade up to get Cooper DeJean. And then we're gonna stay at 32, obviously, or maybe even drop down a little bit. Let's say 38. You know, let's say we're gonna call you, son, on Friday afternoon and say, look what they did to you. But you know what? You just like the next one. All right. I don't care if it's Braxton Berrios. I don't care if it's Wes Welker. I don't care if it's Cole Beasley, baby.
I do.
But lastly, welcome to the club. You too are now a Kansas City Chief, and you're going to get on a plane with Chex Notes Cooper DeJean for our draft kickoff sunset special weekend extravaganza at Arrowhead Stadium. Please vote yes on Saturday of day 3 of the NFL draft.
Lad